this is a variation on the deck. Goblin Rabble Master has been cut out of Pieter's list for Monastery Mentor. But otherwise, we have something that resembles a pretty classic build of the deck, although Pieter also playing 2 main deck copies of Triplicate Spirits.
Okay. That's a new one. Man with the planes to start things off here. Just a flooded strand there for Pieter, and he'll pass the turn back over to Mann, who draws a copy of an island. Again, Mann making the trip up here from Florida, looking to get more open series points, wants to head back to that Players' Championship.
And I think Steven's hand is without a protection effect, which is pretty bad news. As you know, you're playing against a strategy with a lot of removal, and if you just cast your creatures into removal, you're going to be left with a bunch of creature enchantments in your hand.
It's interesting, when we watched Mann play a lot in Columbus, and we saw him quite a few times on camera, very patient on when he would play his spells. Wouldn't deploy a creature a lot on turn number 2, especially if a protection spell like God's Willing. He would play the Secret of the Way on turn 3 with God's Willing available to protect it and then move forward from there. But given how his hand is developed here, he might just be forced to play this Secret of the Way right now.
He might not have a choice. Yeah. And the Jeskai Tokens deck does have some removal, but it's not like it's 20 removal spells. There's some shocks. Shock type effects, and there's a couple lightning strikes and that sort of thing, but there's a reasonable chance your creature survives.
It's the raise the alarm here for Pieter, so 2 tokens will come into play. Tubergen on his 3rd turn definitely has some thinking to do. He knows what he's up against. It's game 3 of the matchup, so he knows that White Blue Hero can kill you very quickly and come out of nowhere doing so. 2 Soldier Tokens are certainly helpful. Now he has a copy of Magma Spray to get that Seeker of the Way off of the battlefield. The Temple of Triumph will allow him to scry. He'll think about the top card here for a moment and move it to the bottom before coming in here with the 2 Soldier Tokens. So Mann's going to go down to 18. Pretty healthy turn there for Tubergen.
As long as he can keep Steven off of ever having a creature in play, beating this deck is elementary.
Hero of Eros, excuse me, in Mann's hand now.
And I do like what Pieter did that turn. He did have the option of just going for broke, where he casts Hordeling Outburst and then stoke the flames, but it's really important for you to cash in your cheap situational removal when you have the opportunity to. Because later on in the game, that Magma Spray may not be worth very much.
Well, we'll see what Tubergen can put together here on now his 4th turn of the game, excuse me, as Hero of Eros does cause you to play the game a little bit differently.
Well, this is the first test. Is Pieter willing to risk getting hit with some sort of protection effect?
There's a copy of Jeskai Ascendancy, and just a passing of the turn, though you can see in Mann's hand, he does have a Glare of Heresy at the ready. So Mann's going to untap. And perhaps it's time to take a draw. Looks like he's going to sacrifice Flooded Strand first. So he does move down to 17. And now he will take a draw step. Picked up a copy of God's Willing.
Huge draw.
Yeah. See 2 copies of Manic Influence in hand, along with an Ordeal of Thassa, an Ordeal of Heliod, that freshly drawn God's Willing, and that very important copy of Glare of Heresy. So a good hand here for Mann, has plenty of resources. The question is, how do you sequence it?
Well, the most straightforward turn is to Glare and take care of the Ascendancy, to play Ordeal of Thassa on your creature for 1 mana, and then leave up God's Willing with your leftover mana.
Well, he's going to start with Ordeal of Thassa. Trigger Heroic. The hero will grow a little bit. He's going to go to Ordeal of Heliod now, so trigger there as well. So he's looking to make a big hero. He's coming into the red zone. Trigger 1, 2 cards coming. And now trigger 2. 10 life coming. Now, of course, the big question here is Man willing to put the shields down, declare of Heresy the Jeskai Ascendancy, or would he rather leave it God's Willing? And I think that question has just been answered. It looks as though he's going to pass the turn back. We'll see, though. I think he's giving Pieter the opportunity to block if he'd like to. And it looks like Pieter will take that opportunity and just chump block with a Soldier Token. And Man will pass the turn with mana available to cast God's Willing.
And I think that if Pieter, doesn't chump block that turn, maybe there's more of an argument for getting rid of the Ascendancy, but there's really only so much damage that can be dealt this turn.
There's a copy of Whirling Outburst. That will trigger Jeskai Ascendancy. And it's interesting because Jeskai Ascendancy, of course, is a card that needs answering or can run away with the game, but Man feeling as though I don't need to answer it just yet. There's nothing you can do that's too terrifying on this turn. But now that you have 3 Goblin tokens and a Soldier token, perhaps now I'd like to deal with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Are you willing to let it be around for one turn? What's the most damage that Pieter's going to do with it? Because the upshot of getting your second Ordeal to resolve that turn is huge. I mean, you have a 6/6, and Pieter's either chump blocking or taking a ton of damage. And if you feel like you can survive Ascendancy being in play for one turn, it does give you more flexibility going forward.
There's an attack for 2, thanks to the Ascendancy. We'll head back Man's way. Man will untap those 2 lands, and that large Hero of our Rose. Draw step for the turn is a copy of Seeker of the Way. Man going to have to navigate through all these Goblin tokens. Got to get that Ascendancy off the table as well. But he has the tools to do that right now, it seems. You can tell he knows he's in some trouble and he's got some thinking to do.
Yeah, the game's not that easy because if Steven can't get a second creature going, Pieter's deck can generate so many tokens that Pieter can win the race even if, Steven generates a 6/6 or an 8/8 or a 9/9. If there's no second creature and there's no trample or can't block effect, then Pieter can manage the race.
We'll see what S-Man can get done here on this turn. Glare of Heresy doesn't seem like a bad place to start. And it looks like where he's going to go. Going to go after Jeskai Ascendancy. Tubergen will try to play a copy of Valorous Stance. And of course, he's going to get the draw and discard. And Valorous Stance here, of course, using the destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater mode. Going to force Man's hand. And prepare to see this one a lot, not only this weekend, but moving forward.
Oh, for sure.
Really good card.
We've seen it in so many deck lists already.
God's Willing here. Going to give hero protection from white. Little scry action here. That top card is going to become the bottom one here for Man.
It's just so hard to imagine a matchup where Valorous Stance does nothing, And in some matchups, it's going to be one of your best cards.
Jeskai Ascendancy will get exiled thanks to the glare resolving. So that'll be another card in the graveyard here for Man. Man does have copies of Treasure Cruise in his sideboard, as most heroic decks do nowadays. Man will deploy a land, and he's going to come. Protection from white means that Goblin tokens are the option. And it looks like one of them is going to bite the dust. Or at least Tubergen's thinking about it.
Steven can't feel too comfortable here. Pieter discarded Raise the Alarm, which is not a shabby card. I have to imagine this means that Pieter is stoking here. Yep.
Okay. I was a touch surprised by the double block.
Yeah. On the surface, it looked curious.
Yeah, to say the least. Now
the rare double jump block.
Yeah. But he gets the big creature off the battlefield. And now just a passing of the turn. Man will draw another copy of Seeker of the Way. But you can see his hand, a Flooded Strand, a Mana Confluence, and a Seeker of the Way. That's it. Against a Soldier token and a Goblin token. Life totals for both players pretty high. Mann going to deploy another copy of Seeker of the Way. But what makes this interesting is that with Seeker of the Way as an open mana, you can bluff some things.
Yeah, it's possible Steven could have run an attack that turn because it's hard for Pieter to pull the trigger on a block if he has nothing.
Mann's draw for the turn is a copy of Favored Hoplite. And which one of these players will get aggressive first? Right now it seems as though Mann can, but maybe he has more interest in playing a defensive game. But ignore that thought. As now the Seekers are going to come into the red zone. Tubergen with no good blocks will take 4 points of damage. Favored Hoplite will join the party, and just a passing of the turn here for Mann. Over back to Tubergen, who will draw a card. That draw step must have netted Pieter something, because he's certainly giving this turn some thought. And he is setting some mana aside as well. He will cast Stoke the Flames on the Favored Hoplite. Wants to clear that out of the way so perhaps he can get into the red zone. And he will, so an attack here for 2 will put Mann down to 22. And Tubergen will pass the turn back. Mann will take a draw step. There are some big ones here available to him, and Johnny's presence isn't bad.
No, that's a great draw step. I mean, at a moment's notice, he can gain a bunch of life, and he has more protection for his creatures.
Tubergen going to go down to 11. And he'll untap his 2 tokens and draw a card. This is a timely treasure cruise. So he will delve 7 and peel 3. Don't know how much we're going to get to see that one anymore. But we get to see it in standard.
A lot less frequently.
Yeah. And that can turn this entire game around. Because now Pieter's got some more fuel. He's got a lightning strike to cast. He's going to target a Seeker of the Way with that. And we'll see if Steven Mann wants to use that Ajani's presence.
And I like doing this now. You don't want to engage in a removal battle against Seeker of the Way on Steven's turn, because then you might be dealing with some lifelink triggers.
And there is the presence.
And you see some subtle body language stuff going on from Steven that turn. His only other card in hand is a land, but he was kind of looking between the 2 cards, trying to imply that he has a second spell. It's really important for Pieter to believe that possibility, because if Pieter thinks that Steven has nothing, he can start being very aggressive in how he blocks.
Triplicate Spirits is the spell that is cast, so now all sorts of tokens out there. Some of them fly, some of them are goblins, some of them are soldiers. Correct me if I'm wrong, a very good card in M15 Limited.
Yes, this was the bomb diggity.
Now Mann, after drawing his card, you can tell he wants to get in the red zone, but now he's got to hang back and play defense. Now his life total is quite high, so he's got some life to play with. But right now it looks as though he might be behind on the board a little bit.
And his draw steps, on average, are worse than Pieter's.
There's a copy of Monastery Mentor. Now there's a card that can run away with a game.
And now Pieter's draw steps on average are a lot better than Steven's.
Yeah. Ordeal of Heliod, the draw here for Mann. That can make Seeker of the Way a little bit bigger, a little bit more formidable. But Monastery Mentor is terrifying in a situation like this. All it takes is 1 spell here for Tubergen, and things drastically change.
Not only that, but if you're in Steven's position, you know, you didn't attack last turn, indicating that you probably don't have any spells. So if you ordeal this turn and attack, it's possible Pieter just throws everything in front of your ordealed Seeker, and that's not good for him either.
Well, there is the ordeal, and here is the attack. It'll be for 4, as ordeal will trigger prowess. Then the ordeal will grant the Seeker a counter. Just a passing of the turn as Tubergen is down to 4. It's a risky one to take.
Yeah, that's a really risky no block there, because now any of Steven's various Aqueous Form, Stratus Walk type effects might generate a kill.
Yeah. You know, cards like God's Willing at this point, it's not going to get it done because there are multiple colored creatures back, but if Tubergen doesn't leave multiple colored creatures back, then God's Willing can get the job done. So here's an attack. Some damage will be dealt here. But that very, very risky take there for Tubergen last turn. We'll see if Mann can capitalize on that. Mann gonna draw a card. The Plains is what he's found. All lands right now. Flooded Strand and Mana Confluence to go along with that.
It would have been incredibly risky, but there was some evidence last turn to suggest that Pieter could have gotten away with a block on the 4/4 Seeker with everything.
Yeah. As you mentioned, very risky though.
Yeah, he loses to damn near anything.
Yeah.
But if Steven didn't attack the previous turn and then drew and cast a spell, it would seem to indicate that.
And now, because his life total is so low, now he has to go into chump blocking mode almost every turn because a card like Defiant Strike is lethal.
Yeah.
Tubergen will draw. Looks like a copy of Treasure Cruise. So he's going to get a Monk token here.
And that's an enormous draw.
Yeah. So 3 cards coming here for him. See if he can find something useful.
He does have 2 copies of Glare of Heresy in his sideboard, which would be spectacular in this spot.
He's going to start by playing a Temple. Leave that card on top very quickly. You mentioned Glare. It looks like he does have one now. He's going to start by playing a Mentor. And now playing a Glare. That's going to go after Seeker of the Way, and that means 2 Monk tokens are going to come as well. Can't forget that the Mentor that's in play, along with its Monk that's already in play, a little bit bigger. Going to leave some of those Monks back on defense, though.
But it's still possible for Steven to win this turn.
Yeah.
I mean, Defiant Strike into God's Willing gets the job done.
Stratus Walk.
Yep.
See what he draws. Battle-wise Hoplite, not what the doctor ordered. The fact that there's even a combination of cards is impressive. Seeker going to come in, a very quick chump block there for Tubergen. The follow-up is that Battle-wise Hoplite that Mann has just drawn. He'll pass the turn back trying to plus some strength. Tubergen going to quickly untap all those lands along with all of these creatures. Take a draw. Looks like it may have another copy of Glare of Heresy. And it was. And he's got some interesting casting in, and it's hard to deny wanting to cast that one. You see Mann's hand. Just lands over there. 2 more Monk tokens are going to come into play. Battle-wise Hoplite's going to be exiled. And you take a look at how much damage can Tubergen deal this turn. The Mentors are 3 power creatures, so that's 6. The Monks are 2 power creatures. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Looks like it's an attack for 13 here, Patrick.
Yeah, just short of lethal.
So that means that Mann gets 1 more chance at it. He'll take a draw. It's a copy of Ordeal of Thassa. And though he would be able to trigger prowess and gain some life, he's not going to be able to get the job done. Pieter Tubergen is going to win this match here over Steven Mann, 2-1. Jeskai tokens will take care of White-Blue Heroic, and those new additions to Jeskai tokens, Valorous Stance, as well as Monastery Mentor, look very impressive.
Yeah.